You know, there's something that happens to people, and everybody notices it, and almost nobody stops to actually think about it. And I mean really think about it. And that's the fact that when you're a kid, summer feels like it goes on forever. Like genuinely forever. A week in August feels like a month, feels like a year. And then you get older, and suddenly it's March, and then you blink, and it's October. And you didn't do anything wrong. Nothing went wrong. Time is still going at exactly the same speed it always was. 1 second per second, it hasn't changed. So what happened? Now I want to be careful here because there are a couple of different things tangled up together, and if we don't separate them, we're going to confuse ourselves. That's a trap people fall into with this question. They go straight to some poetic answer about how life gets busier and you stop paying attention and so on. And look, there's something to that, but I think if you really dig into what's going on, you find something much more interesting and more strange. Let me start with a simple thing. When I was about 8 years old, my father used to take me on these long drives out to the countryside around New York. And I remember those drives felt absolutely enormous. Gigantic stretches of road I could practically feel every mile. And years later I drove the same route and I thought, wait a minute. That can't be right. That's not the same road. It's tiny. The road hadn't changed. The miles hadn't shrunk. I had changed. And here's the thing, and this is what gets me. It wasn't just that I'd grown up and gotten used to driving. It was something deeper. Something about how my brain was measuring the experience. So here's one idea, and it's actually kind of beautiful once you see it. Suppose you're 5 years old. How long is a year? Well, a year is 1/5 of your entire life. That's 20% of everything you've ever experienced. Everything. That's a long time. Now suppose you're 50. A year is now 1/50th of your life. It's 2%. The same 365 days. Same rotation of the earth. But relative to your total store of lived experience, it's, almost nothing. You see, it's like, okay, here's a better way to think about it. Imagine you have a jar, and every day you drop in 1 grain of sand. When the jar is almost empty, each grain matters enormously. Each one is a large fraction of what's in there. But as the jar fills up, adding 1 grain changes almost nothing. The grain is the same size, the jar doesn't care, but the proportion is completely different. Now, I have to be honest with you. That's a nice analogy, but I'm not sure it's the whole story. And I don't like it when people pretend they've explained something when they've only described it in a new way. That's not an explanation. That's just, redecorated. So let me tell you what I think is actually happening underneath in your brain, because this is where it gets curious. It turns out, and this is a real finding from psychology, the brain doesn't record time like a clock. A clock is indifferent. Tick, 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 absolutely regular. Doesn't care what's happening. Your brain is nothing like that. Your brain is recording novelty. New things, unexpected things, things you have to pay attention to and figure out. When you're a child, almost everything is new. You've never tasted a mango before. You've never seen a dead bird before. You've never felt the particular feeling of jumping off a diving board into cold water on a hot day. Everything is a first. And your brain is jotting all of this down like mad. It's making rich, dense, detailed memories out of every single afternoon. And rich, dense, detailed memories feel long in retrospect. I mean, you know this. Think about the last time you were really sick, just lying in bed for 2 days. 2 days. And when you try to remember it, it feels like a week. Because even though you were miserable and bored, you were noticing things. The light on the ceiling, the way the blanket felt. You were present in a very uncomfortable way. Now contrast that with a Tuesday you can't remember at all. It isn't there. It happened, you were alive, you went to work, you came home, and your brain just filed it. Or rather, it didn't file it, it just ran the routine and moved on. Those days don't feel short, you see. They feel like nothing. They don't feel like anything at all. So the question becomes, and now wait, let me think about this the right way because it's subtle. The question isn't really why time moves faster when you're old. The question is why the past seems longer when you were young. Because in the present, in the actual moment, a Tuesday at 50 doesn't feel faster than a Tuesday at 8. It feels exactly as long each second is a second. But when you look back at your childhood, it's enormous. Vast. Because it's packed. Your brain was recording everything. There's so much material there, but when you look back at last year and you were busy and comfortable and not particularly surprised by anything, there's almost nothing there. It collapses. The whole year might take you 30 seconds to mentally scan. And that is what feels like time speeding up. It's not happening now. It happened in your memory. Isn't that something? The speed up isn't real time at all. It's the compression of remembered experience. I find that completely, utterly astonishing. It means the rate at which you experience your life in hindsight anyway is really determined by how much new stuff your brain has to encode. It's not about age exactly, it's about novelty. It's about whether your brain had to work. Now here's where I have to make an honest admission. I can tell you that this is the framework most neuroscientists and psychologists work with, and I think it's largely right. But why the brain weights remembered time by novelty and detail rather than, say, by pain or by pleasure, I don't fully understand. The honest answer is nobody fully understands. There's a whole field of what they call time perception, and it's rich and complicated and not resolved. And there's another thing I want to mention, because I don't want to leave it out. There's also the question of attention. When you're very young, time sometimes feels like it's moving unbearably slowly, right? You're in school, you're watching the clock, every minute is an eternity. And that, it turns out, is also about attention. When you're actively waiting, when you're monitoring time passing, time seems to crawl. And when you're absorbed, it vanishes. You ever play a game you love, just completely lost in it, and suddenly 3 hours are gone? That's real. That's not an illusion. The brain, when it's deeply engaged, really does process time differently. The mechanism, well, that's complicated, and I'll spare you the details, but the phenomenon is real. So you've got two things happening at once. In the present, absorbed moments fly. Waiting moments drag. And in memory, novel experiences expand, while routine experiences compress. And the older you get, the more likely you are to have a routine, and the less likely you are to find anything genuinely surprising. And so both effects push in the same direction. And the years start to go, which brings me to something I find genuinely encouraging about all this. And it's a practical thing. If you want life to feel long, in the sense of rich and full when you look back on it, the answer isn't to slow down. It isn't to sit quietly and try to feel each moment. Although, I mean, that's probably not bad for you. The answer is to do new things. Go somewhere you've never been. Learn something your brain has to actually struggle with. Talk to someone unexpected. Make the jar have to accommodate a different kind of grain. Because it turns out, the way you make a long life isn't by waiting for it to pass slowly. It's by giving your brain material to work with, memories to file, surprises to encode. And I'll leave that one for you to think about on whatever Tuesday comes next.